Hey there, indie authors. Taylor Ellwood here, and welcome to the Indie Author Business Success video today, where we're going to be exploring the topic of when to turn off online ads. And if you're watching this and you're not a subscriber, go ahead and click the subscribe button below, and then click on the bell notification. That way, you get notified when I am going and uploading these videos or going live. So this is a tricky topic because when you're running online ads, and in this case we're talking about Amazon ads, but when you're running them, naturally the question that comes up is, well, how long should I keep these things running? How do I even determine how long to keep these things running? And it's a good question to ask because sometimes you're gonna put together an ad and it could run for a very long time and be very successful. Case in point, if you look down here at my Inner Alchemy Broad and Phrase, this ad has been running since January 5th of 2020, and it's still coming in hot in terms of the return on advertising spend. I'm making money on this ad hand over fist as of now. So that's great. And I have some of these other ones like this one, MOW Paperback, which again has been running since March 25th. Inner Alchemy, which has been running since March 24th. This one, which has been Walking with Spirits, which has been running since August 31st, 2020, it's doing all right, but it's been going down a little bit, so I'm keeping an eye on it. But I'll still probably run that ad for a while. So naturally, the question is going to be, well, when do you stop running ads? How do you figure out? And you might also note that, like in this case, I have a few ads I've just created. They have a budget of $5 right now, and the reason why is because I'm waiting for them to prove themselves. I don't want to spend too much money on them until they're actually bringing in sales, and so that's the thing. So what we're going to do right now is I'm going to go ahead and turn this off, and we're going to look at some ads that I've turned off, and I'm going to walk you through what my reasoning was behind why I turned them off. Here's the thing: you don't want to keep your ads running forever because they're not going to always be successful, and sometimes they're never going to be successful. So it's a hard thing to determine, and you're going to see in some cases here. Here's some of these old ads. Like I have this one that is, I had a spend of $677, I sales 2215, and you might be like, well, why did he turn it off? And the answer to that is that at a certain point, I looked at it and thought it really wasn't bringing in a lot of money. This was back in the early days when I was really just starting to test these things out, and chances are I probably I also had an end date on it. That may have been part of why it ended up getting turned off. So it ended up getting turned off itself. If you put end dates on your ads, they will end up turning off. So you have to review those every so often. I don't always put end dates on, but sometimes I do. And that may factor into why those got turned off. But let's take a look here at some of these other ones. Here's one. This was a test one that I started in August 11, and I spent $771, and I had a sale $499. Um, you know, basically, I probably would have run it a bit longer. In retrospect, I typically would say that I will run an ad now until around $10 to $20. Like here's one for my fiction one, and I started running that, and I let it run to 1009, and then I turned it off because it just wasn't working. Some of these ads I will turn off because they never work. So let's take a look at this one. This is Small Business Test. This was started 9/3/2019. So let's just take a look here and see if they still have the data for it. And it is popping up here. Appreciate your patience, folks. While it's popping up here, just consider this. Like your ads, as always, you have to think things through. Like here, this had 21,000 impressions, click rate of 0.03, so it basically wasn't going anywhere. And I think that's basically why I stopped it. Let's take a look at the targeting here real quick as well and just see. It was categories, yeah, and they just weren't, it just wasn't really running. I think I basically just came to the conclusion it wasn't going to be that successful. Let's go back here. We're going to go back up to all campaigns. you kind of have to, when you're first starting out, you're going to be a little more trigger happy in turning off your ads than maybe you should be. I certainly was. I'm just telling you the truth of it. So you want to be thinking about it from that perspective of, like you have to understand that you have to be willing to spend some money, okay, with ads in order to figure out what's working and what's not working. I eventually, as I got better at it, I became less trigger happy. But in some cases, it just really it just boiled down to wherever things were. And in some cases, I turned some ads on, like this MOA. I turned it off just because I wanted to just see if it would work, and I was satisfied with it. And then I decided, okay, I'm going to turn it off at the time. All right, let me go back up here. All right, so here we go. Oh, here's one I turned off recently. Okay. This is one I started in September 2019. It was still making a bit of a profit, but it was basically to the point where it was no longer as profitable as it could be. It was basically, for the return on advertising spend, it was basically at around 84%, which meant that it was below 100%. Which for me, once they go below 100%, that means that they're starting to not work. This one, I mean, I sold 217 copies, so I'm certainly not complaining. A great number of copies there. But I decided to turn it off because I noticed that the sales were drifting further and further apart. And I turned it off recently, like literally a few days ago. Basically, there was a period of time there where it was selling like maybe, a couple copies, a copy or two copies every couple days. And it got to the point where maybe it was selling one copy a month, and or maybe two copies a month. And then compared to that, the money was racking up. You always want to be careful with ads because the money does rack up over time. And in this case, I just came to the conclusion that this ad was probably no longer being served as frequently because Amazon was probably looking at it and saying, well, yeah, it sold some, but it's not selling as much now. So I chose to end it, and I started up a new ad for my for the Process of Magic, and I've already gotten my first sale for it, so we'll see how it goes. But this is a good example where it wasn't necessarily as profitable as it could be. Note that when you look on here, the return on advertising spend on here is not. This used to be average cost of sales, and then they changed it. But this number isn't very accurate. It doesn't tell you how successful this is or not. I guess we could say that we really want it to be at 2 and above in order for it to be more successful. And in this case, it was at 1.88. Let's go ahead and let's go down a little bit further here. I just want to take a look at a few other ones. I mean, here's one. And this was Inner Alchemy of Life category ad. And it's at $32.83, $39.95. So again, it really wasn't making a lot of money. So it wasn't really worth it. And, you want to keep that in mind with these things. And I've tried different types of ads, category ads, ASIN ads. So, I mean, this will show you there's a fair number of them. Let's go through. Let's go to page 2. So here's page 2. Here's one, Magic of Art Test 9/24/2019. So I started that one probably after the other one. And I had a spend of $199.42 for $19.97, not too bad. So you might again wonder, why did Taylor turn it off? Well, I mean, I kept it on for a while, but at a certain point it started to go down. And when you start to see that your sales are drifting further and further apart for your ads, that's when you want to determine, like, is this ad really working anymore? Chances are it probably isn't. And when you hold on to them too long, that's when it starts costing you money. A good example would be this STMF1. It still technically was making money, but it wasn't anywhere near the profitable range. Remember that with your profit for ads, you're not even just looking, they're basing it off the total book sale. Well, that's an illusion, because for you, you're only getting a portion of that total book sale. So you always have to be thinking like what is actually profitable. And that's why I would say based off this new system, it has to be at least 2 and above. And ideally really at 3 and above for it to really be worth running. Because at a certain point, you're going to have ads that you're running for a while and they're going to start drifting below, and it's just not going to be worth the money that you're spending. Let's look at another page here. So, the way that I determine it is I do think about it in terms of profitability, but I'm also thinking about it in terms of the spend. Like, how much money am I spending on these ads? How much money do I want to be spending on these ads? Because at the end of the day, you also have to factor in that, you spending money on ads is money that's actually, it's a necessary investment, but it's taking away from your ads. One of the reasons why I chose to turn off 2 of the longest running ads that I had was because I read the other day, somebody was like, well, I chose to turn off some of my ads, and I started realizing I was making more money by turning some of them off. And that was the conclusion I came to. I'm like, I've been running these ads for a while, and they're just not bringing in that many book sales. I've probably run them longer than I should have. And again, this is how you learn through trial and error. Like, I'm not by any means the best ad expert out there. But I know what I've learned over the time that I've been doing ads over the last year and 3/4 that I've been doing Amazon ads is what to look for. And as I've gotten more experienced, I've known when to keep an ad running and when to let it go. And again, most of these ads, they're really, if we look at our criteria, they're doing okay. They're not that great though in the grand scheme of things. This one was at one point, so it was beginning to come down. And again, when you look at these ads and you figure out like how when you determine like, okay, there's some actual profit here versus that there isn't, that's what it helps you decide when you're going to turn something on or off. Like here for our criteria, this one is on that I showed you earlier. It's at 3.09, so it is in a profitable stage. If it goes down too much further below 3, that's when I would start considering whether or not I want to keep it running. This was another one here, the magic of writing keywords, and this one was started May 17th, so literally a week before MOW paperback. And it's done okay, but as you can see, it's down at right around 2, and it's basically, if you look at it, it's basically just kind of breaking even at this point. So it's really not profitable anymore, which is one of the reasons I turned it off. Don't be afraid to turn off ads that seem successful. That's what I'm going to tell you. And I know that's a hard thing because people are going to be like, well, why should I turn that off? Well, I mean, don't be afraid to. Sometimes it's worth it. Now, this IA brought in phrase is around 242. It's still profitable. And that's why I'm going to keep running it for a while. It's doing really well. But, I'd probably look at it. And if it started, I think if it dropped like another point, like down to 2.20 or 2.10 or something, that's when I would start considering turning it off, because it would be like clear to me that it's not as profitable as it could be. And you see that with some of these ads around the 2.04. Now, again, by the time you watch this video, this may have changed again because they change this all the time on us. So just keep that in mind. But whether it's average cost of spend or something else along those lines, you can always take a look at those and get a sense. Really, at the end of the day, what you want to do, and I'm going to open this up, is you want to have a formula that helps you calculate the actual profitability. I'm going to show you that here in a moment when it launches, but let's continue looking at some of these. Here's one, MI brought in phrase, where it was at 619.88, and I turned it off. I think I turned that off like halfway through the year. And again, it was about, it's basically right there in the mid-range as far as things go. Okay, Excel's opening up here. We're just going to minimize that. And then this Magic by Design, that's basically 103. Again, it's somewhat profitable, but not profitable enough. And when you start to see those trends, you start to figure out pretty quick what is and isn't working. IA categories, this one ran for a while and it did okay, but eventually it dropped down, and I probably kept it running longer than I should have. These are all things that you want to be thinking about as when you're doing your ad campaigns. Like, how much money do I want to be spending? How much of these when do I start figuring out how to turn these off? So I'm going to pull up my keyword master list here. And you've seen this before. this is how I calculate my my overall profitability, and I got it from Robert Ryan's Amazon Ads Unleashed. So I highly recommend that book if you don't have it already. He talks about it. What you do is you take your ad revenue, and then you take the ad cost, and so you divide the ad revenue by the ad cost. That gives you the profitable, the money, basically what's been made from it, and then you take the ad cost and you basically, actually no, it's excuse me, it's ad revenue minus ad cost. Okay, so ad revenue minus ad cost gives you this number, then you divide this number by ad cost, and that gives you your percentage. And so as you can see here, this is the IA broad and phrase. That's the one I looked at, where it's like 2.4. Well, it's basically at 142%, so it's okay. The walking with spirits is at 127%, so again, it's okay. When it gets down to like the 105s or something, as far as this goes, that's when I start saying, it's time to start turning these off. They're not working anymore, and I might start them up again, or I might take a break for a while and just see what happens. I just wanted to share that with you so that you can use that formula to help you figure out what is or is not successful. Now, sometimes, so now mainly I've discussed turning off successful ads, and in some cases, as you've seen, I've jumped the gun on some ads, but in some cases I really haven't, just by using our criteria. But the one thing that you want to also think about with your ads is like the ones that aren't successful, like this Learning How to Fly ASIN, started August 1st, 2020, it just didn't run. What that indicated to me is that I needed to look at the book and figure out why that ad isn't running successfully. If you have fiction, and I'm not saying this is always true, because like my Zombie Apocalypse call center series, the ads haven't always run that great. So, I'm trying out a new strategy with them, but that series has done pretty well. But if you have a in this case, if you have this Learning How to Fly, and this is running here, and it's run and it's hit at 1582, it's clearly not run. And here's this ZACC, which is another ASIN one, and I sold one copy. That clearly wasn't profitable. You need to know, this is why it's good to have an idea as to like what your spend range is going to be. And some of you might wince and think, oh my gosh, $10, can I really afford that? Well, I mean, maybe you can, maybe you can't. Maybe your spend is lower. Maybe it's $5 before you turn off an ad. The reason why I try to run them until around $10 is because I want to get a sense as to what is or isn't working. And again, because it can be an indicator in some cases that the book needs to be changed. I'm in the process currently of getting my covers for my fiction revised, because I want to see if I change the covers for the superhero fiction, if I change them, if that'll make it better for the ads and things like that. This is a testing process, and you have to get used to that. I mean, I stress that a lot, because I think a lot of times people, they shy away from running ads because they don't want to spend money. And like, look, you're going to spend some money and you're going to have some pain, and that's just part of life. So get over it, run your ads, learn. You can watch videos like this and that'll help you, and you can take courses on ads. I mean, there's courses out there. I'm probably going to be putting one together eventually, but at the end of the day, you still have to deal with the reality of like what does or does not work. And you just have to kind of do what you can with it. Anyway, that's it for today. I just wanted to share that with you, and hopefully this has helped you get a better idea of when you should stop running ads. Thanks for watching, and again, click the subscribe button and bell notification if you're not already subscribed.